In this task, we'll be working with vector data, adding it to the Quantum GIS project and styling it. So here we have our Quantum GIS project. It's completely empty at the moment, there's nothing in it. And before we go and add our vector data, I am going to show you what it looks like in the file. If we go to the file where the shape files are stored, here we see it's in the Year 3 GIS data, the Natural Earth data, the vector folder, and in the countries section, you can see we have 4 files in this folder. They all have the same name, ne_10m_admin_0_countries, but the suffix, the file type, is different in each case. So we have a DBF, a PRJ, an SHP, and an SHX. These 4 files are together the shapefile that your GIS will read. Each of those different file types contains a different piece of data which is going to be used by the GIS to put the shapefile together. The minimum you need to create a working shapefile are the .shp, the .shx, and the .dbf. And by the way, you can also open the DBF file in Excel. You go to Excel, you find your DBF file, and you can open it as an Excel spreadsheet. So that's a very useful functionality of vector files. To return to our GIS, if we go to the browser window, I'm just going to pull this out here and make it a little bit bigger. Now I have saved it on my F drive here. Now I normally ask you to save things on my C drive, but my C drive is a little bit full, so I use my F drive. The important thing is that you should save your data on an actual physical drive that is attached to your computer. Quantum GIS does not play well with online or cloud repositories. So here we go, Anknes Marira. We're in Teaching, Southern University, Year 3 GIS data. Here we go, the unzip file, Natural Earth. You can see how I'm working my way through to the countries. There we go. And you can see in the QGIS browser, we get a single file which is coming up with a .shp suffix. File type is shapefile. And that is the Quantum GIS program reading all of those 4 files and putting the data together into a shapefile we can use in our GIS project. And you can see it's got these little image at the left which shows a point, a line, and a polygon, and that's what tells you it's a vector format. Okay, so we just highlight that, and if we just double click that, it will enter into our layers list below. Now as you can see, what you'll get is a map of the planet, which is very lovely. And it will be randomly assigned a colour. So mine is green, yours might be red or blue or fuchsia or any other colour you can imagine. So we've now got some countries, and now we're going to add some water. So you can see in the same folder we had a water file, and we're going to add both the lakes, here we go, and the rivers and lake centre lines, right? And you can see we've now got a lot of purple lakes in my case, and some red rivers going through the world there. To style your vector data, first go to the layer you're interested in. In our case, we'll go to lakes. Highlight it with a left click, and then right click if you're using a mouse, or equivalent if you're using a touchpad or a Mac, and go down to the properties, and then you select that, and you go to the symbology tab and select that. It's got a very silly name. And then just click on Simple Fill, and you'll get this choice of things. Now in our case, all we want to do is colour it blue, but you can also put no brush so that the centre of the polygon is empty. You can see through it. You can change the stroke colour, that's the outline. You can change the colour, and you can also change the width, and of course the style. So there's a variety of dot, dash, no pen styles you can choose. So I'm just going to turn this blue and click apply, and you can see all my lakes have turned a nice blue colour now. Next we're going to the rivers and lake centre lines because they're a little bit fat and we would also like them to be blue. So we're going to highlight them with a left click, right click to open the layer menu, Properties, and again we're on the Symbology tab. Click on Simple Line, and it again gives you a similar set of choices. I'm going to change the line to 0.4, and I'm going to change the colour to blue. Okay, again it's the same blue as the lake, so they'll all match up nicely, and then I click Apply just to see how it looks. That looks much better. Click OK. Now finally we're going to work with the admin countries. Now what we would like to do with this is to turn this see-through so that only the outline of the countries remain. To do that, we're going to click on it to highlight it. Right click to get the layer menu again. Go to Properties, Simple Fill, and remember we had the fill style options here. Click the down arrow and go to No Brush, and then Apply, and you will see we just get the outlines with a see-through white background. Now what this means is that if there was a layer underneath the countries layer, we would be able to see it through these polygons, and that can be quite important if you are styling vector data over other types of data. We've now got some rather lovely countries, water and lakes on our map. We need to add some points. So we've got polygons, that's for the lakes and the countries, and we've also got lines, that's for the lakes and river centre lines. And now we're going to add some single point data. Now we're going to start by adding a point vector layer to help us zoom in on Rwanda and the area of QGIS. So again we're going to go back up to our browser window here, and you see this populated places folder inside the vector data. You can see there's a Rwanda populated places shapefile in here. I'm just going to double click on that. Now see how it's appeared below the lakes. I actually would like it at the top of the layers list, because if it's at the bottom some of the points may be obscured by the lakes. You see? So now you can see we've got this little cluster of points here on top of the Rwanda. If you need to change the colour of your points, you can highlight them, right click, Properties, and then you've got a series of choices. If you click on Simple Marker, you'll get even more choices. You can choose different types of predetermined symbols, or you can change the colour and the size here. I'm going to cancel because I'm quite happy with my little red dots. I now need to zoom in on Rwanda, and to do that I go up to the zoom button, and this turns my cursor into a magnifying glass, and I can click and drag to zoom in on the area that my spots occupy. And you can see we've got Rwanda here, and the countries around it are also included with a few key spots that are important to us. Now we can use the population centres that we have on the map to locate a site of the QGIS massacre. The names of the population centres are represented in the linked relational database, and in a QGIS project this is called an attribute table. So if we go to highlight the point layer and right click again to open the layer menu, and you can see here we have something which says Open Attribute Table. If we double click on that, we get a table very much like an Excel spreadsheet, which has a series of names and other attributes as they are called. The other thing we can do is go up here to the Identify Feature button, click on it, and you get a little eye and a little box turns up on the right hand side of your screen. And if you then click on one of the points, you'll see that you get the details of those attributes in a little table on the right hand side. And this one of course is QGIS, because I knew where I was going. Now you need to just turn off the Identify Features box, so we know that that is QGIS right there. Now in order to make a map for a publication or a presentation, we need to label these population centres with their names. So if you go back to the layer menu, right click on the populated places layer, Properties, And you can see labels is below symbology. Now I'm just going to move this over here so that you can see it more easily. At the moment we have no labels and there's nothing in the box below. So what we need to do is go to this drop down menu and click single labels. Now there are obviously other ways to label sites and features, but we're going to stick with single labels today. Now we want to label them with the site name, so let's, in the value box, we're just going to check what other options we have. No, we want name. Okay, this is the sample, this is what it's going to look like. Mine is actually in Arial, yours might be in MS Sheldig or another type of font. It doesn't matter, you can change the font here if you would like. The size of the font is probably more important than the font type. Obviously, if you're writing a paper for a journal, to a court or other outside entity that has a house style, you'll want to make sure your fonts match. But the most important thing is that your font should be readable. We're going to go to size and just increase it to 12. You see there's other things you can do, but for now we're just going to stick with a very basic label by clicking apply. And you can see that every site now has a label next to it. And of course the site of Kibuye, which is the one that we're most interested in. Now if you want to change the position of the labels, you can do so with the placement section of the labels tab. Here we go. Now this has a number of modes, so this one is called cartographic. We also have around points and there's offset from points. So you can explore those as you prefer. I'm personally going to go to offset from points, and you can see that this is where your point is, and these are the quadrants around it that you can place your label. Now this would place the label directly on the point, which is perhaps a little bit confusing for the reader. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this quadrant, and then I'm going to just increase the offset a little bit by 5 mil. And just click apply and see what that looks like. So unfortunately we've got a little bit of a clash in positioning here with this label here and this label here. So if I went back to cartographic and then clicked apply, you can see Bukavu and Goma have both returned. If I went to a round point, does that produce a better? That's quite good. That's quite good. I think they're quite clear. Let's click OK. And I'm also just going to make a slight adjustment and change the color of my lakes. Now we've learned about the layer menu, so what I'm actually going to do is select the lakes and then double click, and that opens the properties dialog box very quick. I'm going to change the simple fill to a much lighter color so that my labels show up on top of the lake. So if I put the lakes above the rivers, we're actually using the functions of the layers menu to our advantage here, because I've got a darker color on the rivers and lakes center lines and a lighter color inside the lakes. So what this means is that by putting the lakes on top, even though it's a lighter color, it obscures the darker color of the river center lines, so I don't get strange lines through my lake. So if I were to put the river's lake center lines on top, you see I've got strange lines through my lakes. But if I were to put them below, the solid color of the lake obscures that. So it looks much more pleasing to the eye. And it also allows me to make my lakes lighter in color than the rivers, so that the rivers and the lakes both stand out clearly, and I can see the names when they happen to cross into the lakes. So you can make some adjustments like that and have a little explore of how these symbols work and how you can make this work for you. So we've now created a map of the Rwanda area which shows the site of Kibuye. Don't forget, always save your project. And this is actually going in the wrong folder, so I need to put it in the right folder. And you'll see it's saving it as a .QGIS file. So we're going to save that. There we go. And you've now finished that task.